Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Echo's Reloading Chamber. And tonight we have a special guest in the audience, 30-6 John. And he has a YouTube channel here on YouTube as well as me. And it's obviously a gun channel. And we are promoting gun channels in a way that we can keep them, everyone up to date on people that are new in our community, and we're trying to just get everyone aware of everyone else so that we can learn and follow and kind of get an idea of what everyone in the community is doing so that we can just understand what their channel's about and what they're trying to accomplish, and give them a little publicity and a little promotion for free so that they get maybe pick all a subscriber or two up out of the works, and possibly a new friend. So without any further ado, John, what exactly got you into reloading cartridges in the first place?
Yeah, well, I grew up hunting with my dad and my brothers, and I actually don't remember the first time I reloaded a round. I mean, I probably sat on my dad's lap running the press. I don't remember the first time I pulled a trigger on a gun. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it's a 22, but I really don't remember. I've always been shooting. I've always been reloading. I try to do as much hunting as I can, mostly big game hunting, some small game. But yeah, no, I've just always been reloading. It's just part of what I do.
Okay. So you were one of the kids that actually had a parent that was into reloading and kind of brought you into it that way. That's kind of interesting. My dad brought me into firearms, and actually I built my first AR-15 out in our garage in 1984.
Okay.
And my dad was past military Air Force, and he had me into hunting, but we never really reloaded because I live in Florida. Do you hunt?
Well, I live in Alaska, so I do hunt a lot of caribou, deer, Sitka black-tailed deer, moose, bear. Most of my hunting is caribou and deer, but
Wow.
I stumble across a bear every so often and take a bear. Um, when I lived in the continental U.S., the lower 48 as we call it, I did whitetail deer hunting and down there. But I've lived in Alaska for almost 40 years, so that's what I do now.
Oh wow! What brought you from? Where were you at in the lower 48?
I was actually born and raised outside of Pittsburgh, and all my
Okay.
brothers, sisters, and my mom they still live there. I'm the black sheep. I'm the one moved away from home, and
Uh,
and but I've always my dad when he was alive, he actually wanted to move to Alaska when I was just born, right after Alaska became a state. He wanted to move up here. My mother wouldn't have it. So I've always sort of had this inkling to move to Alaska. And when I did, uh, I was in my 20s, and I know my dad was a little envious. He felt a little bit of that when I moved to Alaska. And it was all mine. I wanted to move to Alaska. I came up here for a several months trip to make sure Alaska was what I thought it was. It was. So I moved up here a few years later, and I've been up here ever since.
hold on a second, guys. G23 says AR guns. His mic isn't working. We can hear him. Apparently, he must be low on your side.
I could try to boost it,
Dave,
I
you're
think.
CW says you're so loud, but Johnny's hard to hear.
All
So
right.
yeah, you still sound over loud to me too.
I am,
Yeah, compared to
because you
past,
sound loud to me. That's why I'm saying
but they're not complaining about. They're talking to you though right now.
I'm extremely loud.
Yeah, according to CW.
Okay.
What you on, John? A smartphone?
Am I on? No, am I? I'm using a lav mic onto
Oh,
my
okay.
desk. Does that sound okay? Am I?
You sound
You're
a
a
little
little
muffled.
bit low.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try to boost your output if I can. Hold on.
Michael Hurtnick says echo is loud. I love
Oh,
hearing
you
a
know what?
loud
Here,
person.
how's that sound? I actually had my lav mic turned off. That should sound a lot better now.
Sounds better, G23 says.
Sorry
Appreciate
about
it, G23. To me, it sounds a little better, yeah. Hmm.
sorry about that.
Oh no, that's okay. Audio sometimes gets a little bit crazy on these things.
Mhm.
Hold on. Let me do this.
As long as you guys can hear him, that's what matters.
Now, how do I sound now, gentlemen?
Better to
See,
me, a little bit. Mm-hmm.
let me
Good
know
now.
if I'm good. Good evening.
Yeah, you're more normal now, your levels, to me.
Okay.
Anyway.
All
But
right. So before the audio interruption, you were telling us how you were kind of the black sheep of the family, moved out to Alaska because your dad had a dream when he was a young man and that continued on into his later life that he wished that he could move out there and kind of the exploring of the new state of Alaska, because I remember when Alaska was made a state and they were offering homesteading where you could go out there with homestead exemptions.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. But I you know, my dad wanted to go there for the hunting, and it wasn't to fulfill my dad's wish, but from all the hunting and outdoors that I've done, moving to Alaska was just the natural part of that. And I've lived up here for almost 40 years. When I had a full time job, I'm retired. I work part time. It was traveling all across the state. I used to work on communication sites throughout the state, so I've traveled to all parts of Alaska, as far north and south and east and west, and 100 spots between in the state. So I'm familiar with the state pretty good.
That's pretty neat. So you're now when you got up there, since you've lived there for 40 years, then you're entitled in on your part of the homestead thing, where they give you a little bit of money from the pipeline and all that.
Oh yeah, that's not
Is that
even. I mean, you only have to be a resident of Alaska for like a year to get that.
oh, okay.
And there's a application to put in for it, and no, we get it every year. Every man, woman, and child who's a resident is entitled to get part of that's called the permanent dividend fund. That's when they had so much oil money and they didn't know they couldn't spend it fast enough. So they put it into a big savings account, invested into mutual funds, and right now the fund is somewhere around $80 billion. So they take a certain amount of the profits of that and they distribute it through all the residents of Alaska.
wow.
Wow, could you imagine if every state did something like that?
Yeah.
If they had the ability to, actually have some type of natural resource, and there's a few of them that do. And, for some reason we just don't, that's another story though. But the bottom line here is, so you went up there because you're into outdoors stuff. Do you fish as well as hunt?
I hunt, I do fish. There's a lot of fishing in Alaska. We fish for salmon, fish for trout, grayling. I mean, there's
Hmm.
ocean fish. There's a lot of fishing in Alaska, and a lot of people fish. We actually have a subsistence fishing that we do. That we actually use large 5 foot hoop nets, and we just go in the river, push it into the river, and catch fish, salmon that way. That's how residents of Alaska actually catch fish. That's called subsistence, and we catch a bunch of salmon, 20 or 30 salmon. We flay them up and
Wow.
freeze them. And I know salmon is a delicacy in the lower 48, but believe it or not,
Hmm.
I actually get tired of eating salmon. we've had to cut back on eating salmon. We ate so much.
Yeah, I eat salmon probably 3 or 4 nights a week, and it's pretty
Okay.
good. That and cod. I'm right. I could throw a baseball and bounce it into the water for the Gulf of Mexico from where I live. So,
Oh, you have salmon down there?
well, we get it from the North Atlantic.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. I'm not sure. It doesn't have the color that the Alaskan salmon have. That really bright pink almost through it. It's a little bit duller.
Yeah,
And from what I've talked to people, the taste is not quite the same.
yeah. Pacific salmon. We usually catch a lot of red or sockeye salmon. It's pretty good eating. Pretty good eating.
Now, do you do any of the hunting for big bear or anything like that, or are you just elk and some types of deer, or are you pretty
Well,
much game for anything?
yeah. I've lived in Alaska a long time, so I've hunted grizzly bear. I've gotten a grizzly bear. I've gotten a
Wow.
black bear. I've been on a few other bear hunts. Um, if you watch some of my other videos, being outdoors in Alaska, you have bear encounters. That just comes with the territory, and you always have to be prepared to deal with bears. But I've gone bear hunting. I don't particularly go out of my way to hunt brown or grizzly bears. Um, Usually, you bump into a bear when you're moose hunting or caribou hunting. For me, a lot of people I know, some of my friends are bear hunters. They do get bear, but I'm I'm usually when I go hunting, if I come across a bear, I'll take them.
Now, when you hunt bear, is that a different tag of its own? You have to get, say, if you're out caribou hunting, you've got a caribou tag. Do you also have to have a bear tag specific to that, or do they have some type of policy where if you're out? Because I know in like Florida and some other states, you can hunt like buck. You get one buck, and you could take your tag back and get one for like two female fawn or female deer whitetail.
Yeah, those.
Yeah, you can always get a lot of
Those,
those
yeah,
even in Georgia. Yep.
Yeah,
yeah.
you need it. Alaska is very complicated game regs, so it depends where you're hunting. As a rule, you'll need a separate bear harvest ticket or registration tag. Some places, like where I got my grizzly bear, you don't you don't need anything. There's so many brown bears and grizzly bears there. They just wanted to make sure people were able to take the bears. So there was no ticket or anything. You needed a hunting license, but you didn't need a special tag for it. So, but usually you need a separate tag for every species. As a resident, they don't really cost much money. If you're non-resident coming up here, it can be very expensive very fast.
Yeah, just to give us an idea, like I know it is extremely discounted for people who live there to hunt, whatever, but if you wanted to go and purchase like a grizzly tag or an elk tag, is it a lottery system? A lot of states have that. Or is it so many tags are available, and if you're lucky enough to get it, is how exactly does that work?
It for residents or non-residents?
Non-residents.
Yeah, it depends where you're hunting. There's a lot of places where there's not a drawing at all. The but the non-resident tags harvest ticket can be expensive. My brother came up and with his two sons. I took them caribou hunting here a couple of years ago, and by the time they bought their non-resident hunting license and non-resident uh, caribou tag, it was about $850. But that wasn't a drawing or lottery. That was just an over-the-counter uh, harvest ticket that they bought. And I took them out there, and I got each of my nephews there. They each got nice bull caribou.
Wow.
Uh, That's a good deal. I mean, for $850, if you really put that entire adventure with your dad and your uncle, and you put that whole thing together, that was worth a lifetime of $850. Because I can remember when my dad was alive, we used to go out and do things, and you never think. But when they're gone, that's all you've got to remember, all those experiences you've had doing those kind of things, and looking back and having so much fun. And it almost becomes, the hunt is just part of it, but the bonding between the people becomes the thing that you always remember the animal you took, but the trip, the time you spent, the funny things that happened. Like, if you get stuck in the snow, or, we've had so many of those kind of adventures boating where, you have a mishap and somebody gets stuck with a hook, and 24 minutes later, they're trying to dig it out of your arm.
You don't sink, do you? In your boat?
all
Actually,
those trips with your family, you always remember those when you're young. When you're
young,
you always remember them all your life.
Yeah. When the closest we came, AR, is I had a through hull fitting break off in my dad's walk around center console. Mm-hmm. And I was already on our way back to our condo, and he gets on his radio, to my little ship to shore radio, and he's yelling, put the trailer back in the slip. Put the trailer back in the slip. I'm like, well, what's going on? I'm down the road. He goes, get there quick. I'm taking on water. And I'm like, okay. So I turn around real quick. It's a 36-foot, center console. Drop the trailer back down in there, run him up on there. And the funny thing was, when he pulls up on the trailer, I felt the weight of the boat hit, and he said he had it at full throttle, and it just barely came up onto the trailer. It was an 1.5 inch fitting, and he didn't notice until he was back behind the steering wheel, and the water started sloshing around, and it's a self-draining cockpit. So he knew he was in trouble when the water's up to his ankles, and he was like, oh, we got a leak.
Michael's got a question. What caliber do you use for bear, John?
Well, when I took my grizzly bear, I had a 338 Winchester Magnum Win Mag. It was a Ruger Model 77 and 338 Win Mag. I hunted Alaska for decades with that before I started using other calibers and that. Mm-hmm. Black bear, I used my 375 Ruger, which is way overkill, but at that point we were running into so many brown bears and grizzly bears. I had to up my caliber there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and that's true too. For grizzlies there, don't they have a minimum of a 33 caliber rifle that you have to use?
I don't know if there's caliber limitations on for hunting brown or grizzly bear. There's the natives up here, they use very, very small calibers. A lot of them, they use a 223.
Wow.
A lot of them use bigger calibers, but a 223 is pretty popular in the Ruger Mini 14. But I don't know of any specific caliber requirements. There might be, but I don't know of any.
They hunt grizzly with that 223 caliber?
They don't really hunt them, but if they stumble across a grizzly, they'll use it on them.
Interesting.
I've worked with natives, up here. My boss was a native when I worked full time, so I've been all through the many bush villages. So yeah, they'll use the 223.
You have to excuse me, John. My audio sucks over here on my side too. My audio, I got when I say $3 mic, I got a $3 mic from Amazon, so it's kind of crappy.
Am I going to?
You're sounding, I can hear you. I was just explaining my crappy audio. I need to up my game. Echo's got a $200 headset.
Listen to him always trying to
with software to make his voice change, and that make it better.
You're trying to make my voice change. What are you trying to make me sound silly?
You do that.
You got one of those. You got one of those little weird sounding, little one of those little boxes where you talk into it and it starts making funny noises. So who's that? Dead Horse is here. Hey, brother, what's going on, dude? So basically, it sounds like Alaska is a hunter's dream. Now I have heard that the mosquitoes can be kind of bad in certain areas, where they're comparable with Mississippi and Florida. What areas of Alaska do they have? Is it pretty much everywhere, or?
Well, depends on the time of the year where you're at. I really don't know how bad the mosquitoes are in Mississippi or Florida. I mean, I'm from Pennsylvania. They can be bad in Alaska. We sort of get used to it. People from the lower 48, they think the bugs are bad. We use a lot of DEET sprayed on our clothes and stuff like that. But they can be bad. It depends where you're at and the time of year. A couple weeks or a month makes a big difference, depending where you're at.
Do you do any ice fishing where you guys have to go out and do the holes in the ice and stuff like that? And what fish do they catch when they're doing that? Are those trout and salmon, or are those a special fish like a sockeye or something like that?
If you're ice fishing, it's not going to be salmon, because the salmon come from the ocean. They go up the rivers. Ice fishing is going to be usually landlocked lakes.
Okay.
So mostly you have whitefish, burbot, lake trout, rainbow trout, grayling, dolly varden. They're all good eating, but they're not salmon. You're not going to go ice fishing for salmon.
Oh, okay.
Not to my knowledge, anywhere.
Yeah, that's my stupidity.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, it sounds now. As far as, here's a question coming from somebody that, I've got some medical problems. People that have medical problems don't usually live in Alaska. Isn't that true? Because I'm just trying to get a kind of a feel for. I've been told that if you live in the like Frankfurt, the large metropolitan areas, it's different. But if you live kind of like out in the woods, that you have run into some issues with getting medical treatment and stuff. Yeah. Is that true?
The medical and health clinics out in Bush, Alaska, have really been improved here in the last 10 years. That was actually part of what I was working on, was delivering communications to those remote villages for telemedicine use. So a lot of those bush villages have better medical facilities. It depends how remote you want to go. I mean, I live in Anchorage. That's the big city. Fairbanks is next biggest. I mean, the bigger cities have good medical facilities. When you start going very remote, you better take a lot of medicine and have a plan for getting out if you need to, depending on what your medical is. But I mean, there's plenty of people who have medical issues they have to deal with in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious asking that question. I would like to someday be able to go up and just see it and take, not hunt or anything, but maybe do some fishing or something like that. I don't want to get out in the woods and for any length of time have an issue or something. But it sounds amazing. So you're covering reloading, and I noticed you doing some stuff to help beginners get on board. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Just seems like during this past year, like I said, I been reloading since I was on my dad's lap. I don't remember the first time I threw a reloading press ram lever. And talking to a lot of people, you see them at gun stores, they're trying to buy ammunition, they're trying to buy reloading stuff. They have a lot of questions. I almost feel obligated to interject and help people. So that's what I did on some of my videos, was just how to reload. And there's a lot of videos on reloading there. I just thought was my take on it, with the shortcuts and the minimal equipment needed for reloading. A lot of people, they want to get a Dillon press, which I have a Dillon press. But a lot of people don't want to commit themselves to that money or that work. And a single stage press or lead turret press works fine. They're not too expensive. You buy a Dillon press, you're in for a few $100. You know?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the Lee turret press. I haven't been reloading very long, 7 years almost, but I have been around it my entire life. You know, I remember turning, unloading brass and popping primers out and putting them into tumbling jugs over at my dad's friends' houses. And, they would always have a bunch of stuff for us kids to keep us busy, and doing that kind of thing. But the bottom line is, if you're out in Alaska, you've got a real experience to explore what I think is one of the last frontiers in America. And I think it's a really neat place to go out and live and to be able to hunt and fish and just explore. And it's amazing. I've seen some of the guys that go out and shoot pictures and stuff of the actual natural surroundings, and some of that photography and some of the video is absolutely amazing. I would really like to see the Northern Lights. I think that's really neat when you see that on some of the shows that they have now that cover from Alaska and whatnot. Is anybody in the side chat ever been to Alaska?
Michael's got a good question. It's related to what we're supposed to be talking about. How's primers and powder and everything up there, John, where you're at?
Well, it was short for a while, being growing up reloading and being through several of these shortages. I always have plenty of powder and primers on hand. Powder you can find around Anchorage in different stores. May not be what you're used to using. You have to be flexible. Primers is definitely short. At the local Sportsman's Warehouse here in Anchorage, I was able to get 1,000 large pistol primers last week, and the prices were very good. It was $42 for 1,000.
Wow!
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah. So primers are slowly coming back. I mean, I don't know what it is in the lower 48. One advantage you all have down there is I think you can mail order stuff, right? Or have it shipped to your house, and we can't do that in Alaska. We can't call Midway USA and have ammunition or powder or primers shipped to Alaska.
Okay.
That's no one does that. There's no shipping company that does that up here. UPS doesn't do it. FedEx, no one does it.
That's probably has to do with the aircraft that they use to ship small.
The remoteness of Alaska too, right, John? I mean, certain sections.
Well, yeah, but you got to understand, powder is an explosive, primers are an explosive, and small aircraft that are commercial cannot carry that kind of stuff. They have no fire prevention on board, so they can't carry it, and therefore you cannot transport it. That's why they are not allowed to ship powder, because what they'll do is they only have so many airports that can take the big aircraft, the big jet aircraft, and then they break it down to the smaller commercial aircraft, and they go all the way down to like Piper Cubs, to certain little bush villages. Because I was always into aircraft, but I have a couple friends here in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live, that are private pilots, and one of my business partners was a commercial pilot for American Airlines. So
Is it common, John, to get stuff shipped around your town or to people like we do down here in the 48?
It's common for shipments to go out to the bush villages because these are smaller private aircraft that are cargo only. They could actually have primers or powder shipped from Anchorage or Fairbanks to the smaller bush villages. Although there's very little reloading in bush Alaska. I have seen myself very little reloading, but it's possible.
So do they just buy new ammunition and use that for hunting and kind of, I guess, sparingly with it?
Correct. Yeah. When they come to Alaska, a lot of people travel in and out of Alaska or Fairbanks. They usually stock up on a lot of ammunition they'll need for the next few months or next half a year or next year. So, yeah, I've seen people come into stores and they'll buy a case of shotgun shells for going out in the bush. That's normal.
That's so interesting. What exactly you were saying elk? Now, do you guys have some type of deer? We have a lot of whitetail in the lower 48.
Yeah. We have Sitka blacktails, which is they have those in Washington and Oregon also. We have elk, but I'm not. I do more caribou hunting. I've never really hunted elk in Alaska. There's a couple small transplanted herds of elk in Alaska, but those are lottery and drawing hunts.
Okay.
But the caribou is very common. There's caribou, and depending where you're hunting, you could fly out for caribou. Or where I went caribou hunting, my son got a caribou here last month. We drove up. It was on the road system. We were able to take ATVs and got a nice cow caribou.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So basically the caribou, okay. Now, and you guys also have moose as well, or is that okay? So yeah, you've got the blacktail deer, which those are about the same size as whitetail in like Wyoming, right? They're a bigger of, not a mule deer size, but they're the bigger of the whitetail size. I'm just trying to get a.
I think blacktail will be a little bit on the smaller side. They're a little bit smaller and stockier than a whitetail.
Oh, okay.
But usually we're allowed, depending where you're hunting, you're allowed anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 deer. Where I hunt, you're allowed 2 bucks or up to 4 bucks.
Wow.
Where I usually hunt, but there's other places, depending on where you're hunting, you're allowed up to 3 or 5 deer. So that's, I actually enjoy deer hunting a lot, just because there's so many of you. You're allowed 3 or 4. When you get a moose, you shoot a moose, you have a day or 2 days worth of work ahead of you. You drop a moose and what are you gonna do with this cow-sized animal? And you have to. Usually it's remote. You have to skin it out, quarter it up, put it in meat bags, haul it back to your vehicle. If you're on foot, you have side by side or an Argo. Makes it easier. But once you get a moose, the work really starts moving the meat. By law, you have to salvage all the meat. You can't just take the horns. That's the number one game violation in Alaska is wasting meat. Wild game meat.
G23 says ferrets and boats can transport ammo and powders. In other words, you don't have FedEx up there running around, do you, like we do?
Well, we do have FedEx.
You do have FedEx?
They don't. I don't think they really go out in the bush, Alaska.
That's what I was thinking. Probably didn't. So that should answer you guys' question.
Yeah, they're small. From what I understand, and now granted, this is from me watching shows, and I watch some very small, like PBS type shows where they do documentaries where they go up there and they'll film with a small transportation service, and they get small bundles of packages that come by truck, and then they'll break them up into smaller loads, and they take them out to these small little villages.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because, when they come in, they make sure the runways are been cleared and everything. Any fresh snow is cleared off of it, and they land with the skids, the little I don't know what the hell they're called. They're like snow skis for an aircraft, and they're these little Piper Cubs and stuff like that, and they're bringing all kinds of stuff in.
Yeah, that's flying in Bush, Alaska. It's neat. I mean, I've flown a lot of smaller planes throughout Alaska, and it's when the weather's good and it's okay. When the weather's bad and you're being buffeted all over the place, it's not fun.
Yeah.
So thinking, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Hopefully you get a good pilot that understands it also, and doesn't try to push the envelope.
Yeah.
Kind of funny because we all down here in the 48, we've only had really shipping and internet for 2 decades now. It's not that long, but everybody now thinks that's all we do is just order stuff online and sit back and go to our door, knock with our pajamas and say, "Give me my bullets, give me my guns."
Yeah, no, there's no ammunition, powder, primer shipping in Alaska. That's what I'm saying. That's one disadvantage of up here. We can't call Midway USA or Natchez and order powder, primers, or ammunition. That's I wish they could change that, but no.
Yeah. Now, if you have to buy primers, powder, bullets, whatever, do you have how many? I'm curious about this. Gun stores in Alaska. Is there quite a few of them? Are there stores that sell guns along with other things like here in the South, we had a lot of mom and pop shops that would sell food, all the way down to tractor parts and antibiotics for cattle, and and feed and hay and all that. And then they would have a counter for guns, and they had an FFL, and they would do firearms and ammunition sales.
Yeah. We have a lot of gun stores. I mean, we have a big gun culture up here. I mean, everyone has guns and stuff like that. But in Anchorage, we have a lot of gun stores. When you talk about stores that have multiple things in it, we have one chain of stores here in Alaska called Three Bears. They're sort of like a small Costco type of store, but they have a pretty good gun section in there. When you go out in Bush, Alaska, the bigger villages, they have a store called a AC Commercial Store. That's an Alaska chain, and they sell food and some hardware, and they usually have a small gun section there also. They don't sell any reloading supplies, but they do sell guns and ammunition.
Used to be that way down here in the lower 48 too. You had a lot of these little Western autos and that sell guns and rifles and stuff. And you don't see much of that anymore here. Not even in 48, you don't see it like you used to.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, we have plenty of gun stores, but there's no like Walmart up here. They still sell guns in Walmart here. We have a couple Walmarts in Anchorage. They sell rifles and shotguns and ammunition, but they don't have any reloading supplies. They don't have any handguns. They don't sell any type of AR type guns. They're just bolt guns and shotguns. 10-20.
There's not much reloading gear even down here in Georgia. Only certain shops. Sometimes mom and pops they'll sell some, but it's not widespread like everybody thinks.
Yeah.
Now, John, is there a need for a store like that would sell reloading and like handguns and AR-15s and and stuff like that? Is there a demand for that kind of stuff, or is it more traditional type?
No, there's a lot of ARs up here. I mean, we have a Bass Pro Shops in Anchorage. We have a Cabela's in Anchorage. They sell ARs. They're starting to sell on a shelf now. 3 or 4 months ago, you couldn't find an AR anywhere in Anchorage or Alaska. Now everyone, whatever reason, the pandemic, it's not the end of the world. Now all the ARs are sitting on the shelves now, so there's no shortage. And everyone, when I go down to the range, there's a lot of people shooting ARs. I mean, everyone has them.
Cool.
People have a couple of ARs. Even when you go out to the bush, you're starting to see a lot of natives with ARs now.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, I'll say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you didn't. Now they're they like ARs, and it's fine. It's they're mil-spec guns, so they work fine out in the bush.
That's good because it's becoming common, and that makes it harder to ban once it becomes ingrained in the culture.
Yeah. And also what I like to see is I was watching like one of those shows I was telling you about before, and one of the native chiefs, villagers, the guy that was in charge of the whole thing, they had a problem with a what they called a rogue polar bear.
Oh, yeah.
It kept coming in to their village, where they keep their trash, separate from where they live. It's kind of like a dump, almost like, but it's on top of the ice. And they kept they would run them out of there. And this one kept coming back, and he had chased a couple of kids that were out there, looking for stuff, playing, I guess. And so he had gone and got his M16. And I was like, oh, wow, look at this. I'm like, and he's like loading up a magazine, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, look at this. He's so far away from where all that stuff's made, and he's got an M16, a full automatic, and they went down there and they got the bear. And I was like, I was expecting him to have like a an old big bolt gun or something like that, and he's just like, well, either one big bullet or a whole bunch of tiny ones works just about the same. And I was laughing because I was like, yep. And
he had a full auto M16.
Yes, he did. He had a full auto M16, and I was like amazed because those aren't cheap at all. And I was like, but this was an older fella. He was probably in his 60s, and he was, I believe, he was Eskimoan, and they were way out. I mean, these were landing Piper Cubs like on these little ice strips to get to where these places were.
It's been known that the natives borrow a firearm from the local National Guard armory for certain reasons. Also,
yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, that would make sense. You know what I'm saying? Because if they had a problem like that, a bear, that's something that they need to be worried about for their community reasons. Because you got kids walking and playing and going to school in the morning and stuff. That's not a good combination.
Oh, in Bush, Alaska, problem bears are dealt with. There is no, the bears were here first, and
yeah.
Problem bears are dealt with. They are eliminated, and they don't know what the rules or law is. Right,
and the good thing about that is the other bears know if you step out of line, you get shot. And they don't have as many, they have problem bears, but once they get rid of them, it seems like it lets the other ones know what their boundaries are. That's what I've noticed just from watching video on it. It seems like it keeps a lot more bears from being killed. Killing a few kind of sets the pace. Like, hey, if you come into this area, you're going to get shot.
Yeah,
so they become dinner and pelts. Yeah, it's a good one.
The other bear trains the bear cubs. This is where you get your food. You get rid of the bears that do that, so they don't train the younger bears. The other bears will stay away from people.
Yeah, that makes sense because bears are supposed to be naturally afraid of humans, as we are supposed to be naturally afraid of them.
Yeah. Yep.
AR, is there any questions out there in the side chat?
Not yet. Vanessa said they had a bear stuck in a dumpster drunk. Took 2 days to wake it up and sober enough to leave. Wow. That's an interesting story.
Commenting from Vanessa. Is she in Alaska somewhere?
Vanessa is, I believe. Vanessa, where are you, sweetheart? You're northwest, aren't you? I'm thinking she is in a remote area, but I don't think Alaska. But I may be wrong, but I don't think Alaska. Well, she'll chime in just a second.
I think she's been there though.
Yeah. Oh, she has been to Alaska, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa was in the Air Force.
Yeah, that's right.
Connecticut. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
She's an East Coaster.
Hey, Critter. With the advent of guns, we are at the top of the food chain. Yep, you're right, Critter. Good to see you, Critter. Glad you're in here, buddy. Fuzzfort, he's here. When was Hunter Biden found drunk in a dumpster?
Did it take him 2 days to wake up? No, because he was on crack. He just jumped up and ran. But John, seriously though, brother, so your YouTube channel, I like it. I like the thing where you do your reloading and you try to help people. I watched the one on 38 special. I watched the one on, I believe it was 45 ACP, and I watched one on the 450 Bushmaster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's got a bolt gun in 450 Bushmaster. And what do you hunt with that?
Well, I bought it sort of a spur of the moment because I thought it was a neat gun to have. You know, out of a bolt gun, you could really hot rod a 450 Bushmaster because factory ammo is limited to about 38,000, 40,000 PSI in an AR action. That's what factory ammo is limited to. In a bolt gun, since it's rated for 308, 30-06, you can increase the pressure on your reloads quite a bit. And I didn't put any reloading data on that, but some of my bear loads are they're approaching a 450 Marlin or a heavy 4570 load. And the ranch rifle is actually smaller and lighter than my lever action 450 Marlin. So I carry it for bear protection, camping. I've actually taken it deer hunting. I didn't get a deer with it, but it's actually a pretty useful round. You know, in a bolt gun. It's also an AR cartridge, but it's pretty good in bolt gun.
Yeah. There is a couple of AR cartridges that they fire in bolt guns. If you get into 458 SOCOM,
yeah,
talk to me.
Can we put the guy in the chat? Excuse me.
What, can I? Yeah, we can do that. You want to go ahead and do that, AR? Or
yeah, I'm doing it now. Go ahead.
Okay. If anybody wants to come on here and have a little bit of a chit chat with John and AR and me, feel free to come on. But what I was trying to get back at, it was the 450 Bushmaster, the 350 Legend, which is like its little brother, I call it. The 458 SOCOM, if you did go to get into that, I know the guy that actually built the rifle around the Asian fella that designed the cartridge. He actually built the rifle around the cartridge to work with that cartridge. Okay. And he's got a shop here in the lower 48. And if you need anything, we'll get something put together for you and sent up there for you. We even get you some brass and primers, whatever you need, man.
Yeah, I have a lot of primers.
Okay. Now, if we want to send you something, is there a way to send something to a shop where you can pick it up from? So, because they say that you can't mail primers to your door. But if somebody wanted to send you, say, an upper receiver, a 458 SOCOM upper or something to that effect, or some brass, now you can send that to your door, or do I send that to the post office and you have to pick that up?
You can send it to the post office and I'll pick it up. I mean, I have a P.O. box.
Okay, yeah.
House. I get a P.O. box. I ordered an upper from Midway USA. And it came in the post office, I picked it up. Yeah. So no, that's fine. I mean, if it's something you could ship by mail, my P.O. box is probably why I like it, because I could go there and pick it up.
Yeah.
We do have services that drop. We do have like Amazon that takes boxes to your house, but they can't do ammunition. I mean, they're still limited by the same federal laws as everyone else.
Mm-hmm. I'm fine, Michael. I'm just curious about primers. I was joking.
Oh, okay.
But I need some. Yeah, when they come in, I'm gonna try to buy them here. Definitely. Appreciate asking the question. They're hard to get here. Boy, I'm calling all the time.
Everything's is hard to get right now.
Is it getting better? You're
not
you're
here.
in Florida and AR guns. Where are you at?
Georgia.
Georgia. Still hard to find.
Yeah, around my town it is. You can't get squat. I mean, call. But we ain't had none in a month too. And when it does come in, it'll come in just maybe a day or so, then boom. You don't see it for long periods of time. So.
Wow.
Yeah, when they're dumping batches of primers and powder, they're doing it in huge amounts. We're talking, I got a friend that works in the railroad industry, and he sees freight cars filled from floor to ceiling with primers and powder.
We should send them here.
Well, they're sending them. What happens is they come out of these, like CCI's factory, or they come out of Winchester's powder storage container facility, and then they'll put them on railroad cars, and then they'll take them to locations, and then like 25 metric tons of reloading supplies will get broken up at a shipping distribution center, and then a little bit will go here and there. And one store will get two cases of primers out of 2 metric tons of them. So they're breaking it up into smaller amounts because they've got to take this one big group of stuff and get it out to all their stores and all the different places, and there's just not enough coming in. You've got 4 million new gun owners. So that's 4 million people that are now buying ammunition, just like all of us were, because of the political times we're in right now, and because of, the COVID and all that. People are stocking up on ammunition. A lot of people are buying guns for the first time, so they need ammunition to train and learn how to use it. All of this is just doubled up, and then all of a sudden the factories that produce factory ammunition are limited to the number of employees that they can have on their floor because of the COVID restrictions. A lot of these states will have 1,500-1,600 employees, but after the restrictions, 600 are allowed to be on the floor. And out of those 600, your guys that have 25 plus years running the machines, that are your top guys that you want on the floor to make sure things are going right, are your guys that are in their 50s and 60s and are like, hey, look, I need to probably take a little time off right now, because if I get this sickness, I could seriously, get very sick from it or die. So they're losing their experienced crew from the floor. They've got younger guys that are less experienced, and they're not as many of those. So they're starting to, it's just a workaround problem where they cannot generate but a certain amount of product over a certain amount of time, just because they don't have enough people. And yeah, go ahead, AR.
Yeah, I read today that we have like 10 million jobs and we can't fill them, even in here in the United States, on the lower 48 here. Can't find enough people to go to work.
It's the same up here. You go everywhere. There's help wanted ads, not ads, but every store you go into, there's help wanted.
On the primer thing, last I know of a store, maybe 8 months ago, got in 8,000 primers. They sold it for $900 something here in Athens, Georgia. For 8,000 primers, $900, almost $1,000. I said, that guy, I went the next day and I said, did you get rid of those primers? He said, one guy bought it all. I said, not me. I ain't paying no $1,000 for 8,000 primers.
Yeah, the people
Somebody did.
The stores that, and the stores I can sort of understand, but when I see people kind of sell them at gun shows at elevated prices, they're just basically flipping them. I won't buy it.
Me either. I won't either.
they're just trying to turn a quick profit, and they're not helping
Mm-hmm.
the situation at all. They're
Yeah.
just enabling it because they're just buying them and not letting the natural buy and sell process take
Yeah.
effect there.
Capitalism. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with the
I'm a
advent of the internet, you got everybody on there, young guys, just ordering that crap by the whatever they can as fast as they can, and then going to gun broker here, mark it up 4 times or 10 times higher. That's what you got.
Yeah, you're always going to have that. I call that career capitalist. But the bottom line is, you got capitalism, and it's working. You got a limited supply, you got a high demand, jacks the prices up. So, but what we need to pay attention to right now is that all these primer and ammunition producers are starting to expand. At first they weren't, because they were like, hey, look, if we expand, then we feed all this need, and then when the need goes away, we're stuck with all these job positions that we have to have people at, and no need for the product, and that's going to make our product price drop, because it's capitalism, and we're going to have to sell this stuff for cheaper than we can produce it. So basically what they've done is they waited, a lot of them, and then they said, okay, and then they have their guys that they interview with, and they tell them, hey, look, this demand is not going anywhere. We have all these new gun owners that need ammunition. We have 4 million more as of last month. So that means, okay, if a guy, let's just say, shoots 5 boxes of shoots, say, 250 rounds of 9mm per year, then that's just to keep his skill up on his self-defense carry gun. Well, multiply that by 4 million, and you just wiped out every single production guy in town that makes in the United States that makes ammunition. They weren't ready for a 4 million increase within a matter of months. Yeah. And basically they have been trying to play catch up ever since, even with the restrictions on how many people can be in their building at a time for so many square feet, how many people you're allowed to have per square foot. And now they're expanding because they realize, look, this demand is not going anywhere, but it's getting bigger. And basically, so they're expanding their production plants. They're expanding it out. CCI has added, I want to say 80 or 70,000 more square foot, I believe it is. Remington is expanding again their brand new plant in Huntsville, Alabama. And they said Hornady is too. What was Hornady saying? Another 20%?
20%. Yeah, 20%.
Yeah, they'll be able to pump out another 20% by this time next year. They said, I think it will. That means they're moving with construction, just pulling permits for commercial building of that kind of production where they're making explosives. That stuff is they're pushing this through hardcore. They're paying these guys to get this stuff done, built. So they're in it. So I'm going to say this time next year, I think you're going to start seeing your first little break where you're going to see some primers coming back on the shelves. Not a lot, but you'll actually be able to buy them and not have to come in and check another day. Come in, check another day. They'll start showing up.
Critters got 12,000 now.
Did I read somewhere that Double Tap was actually making a primer factory? And I read that somewhere. Because they realized what you were saying there, Echo, that the ammunition situation isn't going to change. So they're actually building their own primer factory. And I read somewhere that these 50% of new gun purchases in the last year or the last few months or whatever were by female. First time that's ever happened. the guns bought by women. That's the gun market's changing. It's more people buying guns, and the demographics changing a little bit there.
The thing with women buying guns, let me tell you, gentlemen, that is the
TV
best.
A lot.
No, that's the best thing I've heard, and I tell you why. If you remember, women basically control this country. And I say that because, you got your alpha male out there that are like, oh, yeah, I rule the hen, this is my house, everything. And I'm here to tell you, I know a lot of alpha males. I know a lot of them. I'm around a lot of cops and firemen all the time. My dad was a fireman, ex-military. He was fire rescue. He was the guy walking across the top of a building, fully involved, getting ready to ventilate the hole in the roof when there's flames coming up around him. That was my dad. And these guys, one thing that they always listened to was mama. Mama's not happy. No one in our family was happy. And that is the honest to God's truth. So for women to be pushing such a large demographic on buying firearms is saying to me one thing. They realize that it's up to them to protect themselves from predators and people that are predators. Yeah. So once that a lot of these women own firearms, it's going to be that much harder for any administration to go in and remove them. If you remember back in the 1900s, the Women's Foundation for getting women to be able to vote, and also they helped bring on where they outlawed alcohol, prohibition. Yeah. And we all remember that whole thing. And the bottom line was, women play a very, very important part in our communities, and they also play a huge part in voting and how families vote and why they vote the way they do. And I'm seeing a huge demographic push across the entire firearms industry with ladies, and I'm very happy to see it. And I just like to say thank you. Round of applause to the women out there taking up the fight and picking up a firearm and getting some time on a trigger. And basically that is a very big thing, because that is what is going to pull us out of the fire, because nothing tells a Democratic leftist liberal that we don't want our guns taken than 1,000 moms standing up there saying we're demanding our right to protect our families with firearms. And what are you going to do?
Yeah. I was think anyone who's gone to a public range will notice that. I've seen it at the ranges I go to. There's a lot more females there shooting than 10 or 15 years ago. Before, it was sort of hard to see a woman shooting. Now you see groups of 2 or 3 just at our range. With themselves just shooting, not with their boyfriends or anything, just a group of gals going shooting.
And that's a great thing, John. I go and I sit there, and I remember the same times you do. The only time you ever saw a woman in a shooting range or in a gun shop, she was in there putting up with her husband, and you could tell she was just like, hurry up, honey, do what you're going to do, and then we're going to get out of here. But now it's like I see women going with other women to the shooting ranges and shooting and participating and coming out, asking questions, getting training, getting tactical training. I'm actually, before I shut down our business, when we were manufacturing firearms, I was getting a lot of customers that were ladies buying AR-15s because they're recoilless rifles. You can adjust the stock. They're lightweight. They don't kick. And that was their thing. They were like, look, I want something that I can defend myself with, that I can tune to myself, and I can hold myself up, pushing around a 12 gauge shotgun is a little bit much for a 120-pound lady to ask. I mean, even I'm 190 pounds. I shoot a 12 gauge shotgun with a slug in it. And I'm just like, my God, man, I feel back of my teeth hurt. Yeah. I'm just like
a lot of unrest in America has driven a lot of these women to the security of a gun too.
Yes.
Watching all this turmoil in our streets and cities freaked out a lot of people. Not me. I grew up in it from the 60s. I'm kind of used to it when I was young.
Yeah,
but the new generation's not.
Yeah, you see an entire building or entire community get set on fire, and it'll change your opinion about firearms real quick.
Yeah.
6'3". Whoa.
We haven't had any of that type of stuff in Alaska, but I've seen it in the lower 48 on the news and stuff like that, and that scares a lot of people to get guns. I know a lot of people buying guns when the pandemic started, but that sort of died down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I fear is like now that the pandemic complete crisis is not over, but I think people have calmed down enough to accept it for what it is and realize that, it most likely is not going to go away like they said it was.
We have more cases here in Georgia now than we did this time last year, even in my daughter's school where she works. Every day, 2 or 3 people are leaving school with COVID.
Yeah.
One after another.
How are you seeing COVID in Alaska because of the cold temperature and the mostly sporadic? You've got your areas that are cities, and they're just like our cities. They've got a lot of people very close together in them. But as far as where you live and in some of the less densely populated areas, is it having any positive effect?
Well, we were doing pretty good on COVID. Here in the last month, the numbers have really jumped up with the Delta variant. The vaccine's been out there. I mean, me, my wife, my son, 18-year-old son, we all got vaccinated. A lot of people didn't. I mean, our hospitalizations with COVID sort of high right now. I think a lot of people realize it's not going away. We just have to live with it. That's why, even though the numbers are high, people just aren't getting. They're not going to go back to masks. They're not going to get locked down like they did last year. Let's just deal with it and get it. Just deal with it. So even though the numbers are high, people aren't going to do what they did last year. No one's panicking. No one's going to do that anymore. That what do they say? The cure is worse than the disease. So they're not doing that what we did last year on it. If you want to get vaccinated, everyone knows it's free. Everyone knows how to wash their hands and stuff like that. And, we don't have any mandates here, any type of restaurants or anything like that. I heard they're bringing them back. In Anchorage, they're talking about it, but they're not going to do anything. People are just going to get upset and probably storm the Assembly City Hall or something like that.
Yeah, basically, we're seeing the same thing, a lot more spike with the Delta variant because of because of its more contamination. It's more spreadable. What is the word I'm looking for? It's
more contagious.
Yeah, it's more contagious, and basically, it's almost airborne. Is how I was explained it, and basically, a lot of things people don't understand about virology is the fact that COVID is a virus that spreads between animals and humans and jumps between them and mutates, just like the cold, just like the flu. That's the reason why they've never got rid of the flu, even though we have a shot we can get every year. And the shot basically is the World Health Organization and the CDC they watch the flu viruses as it moves from continent to continent, and they watch its mutations. And they make their best educated guess with decades of information, between each doctor that is handling this, and they make their best guess. Well, in 2000, and I think it was 15, when President Obama was in office, they guessed wrong. And 65,000 people in the United States died of the flu.
Yeah.
And the basic thing here is when you have a virus that can jump from person to person and from animal back to person, even if you inoculated the entire planet human being wise, which is physically impossible, it would still jump to an animal, stay in an animal dormant for a while, and then it would reappear in a slightly mutated form, and it would jump back to humans. And that mutated form will get people sick and start to spread the virus all over again. And so that's what you're dealing with. So when you're looking at it that way, and that's the correct way to look at it, we're going to have to learn to live with it, just like the flu virus, just like the cold. It kills people every year. And until people were like, they're in the States, the lower 48, they were like, oh my gosh, all these people have died from the I call it cocoa, but the coronavirus. I got that from Roll Call, my buddy. But basically, this virus is basically just going to be with us now, and eventually I think, like the Spanish flu eventually made its way to where kids get sick with the flu virus. You throw up for a week, your kids are sick because it's flu season, and all the kids are sick with the flu, coming home sick, snotty noses. I remember all this when I was a child, and it was like it was a little bit hell on my mom and dad, because they were like, yeah, we got to keep him away from everybody else and all that. But the bottom line is we learned to deal with it. We learned to grow up with it and learn with the flu. And sometimes the flu can kill you, especially if you're a weakened older person, so, but that's just part of life, is death. So that I think we need to just get over the over being scared of it and address it just like anything else with a rational, calm, kind of way about us, and handle it.
Yeah, John, anytime you see us going live, feel free to jump in and chat and talk, whatever you like.
It's you've talked with me. Yeah, I'm there's a 4-hour time difference, so it's what, 9:30 your time?
Yes, Eastern Standard.
5:30 our Alaska time. So
oh wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a bit different there.
I will send you links when we do late night after hours chat, because that would put you in right after dinner time.
Yeah.
And, that way you could participate and not have to be like missing any of your activities.
Yeah, well,
those are different chats. We got different chats across YouTube here and there.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I enjoyed being on here. I've never really been on a video meeting like this. I've never was part of any type of Zoom meeting before. Where I used to work, it was all teleconference. It was all just on a bridge call, phone call. We didn't do the Zoom meetings now. Although my son for school, he did them for school for the last year and a half, So that was fun talking to some people across the different people in the nation and that.
Oh, yeah, definitely, John. I plan on staying in touch with you, brother. And if you ever are looking for something that I may be able to help you out with, get you something that you need and send it to you, not a problem, man. I'm willing to work with you any way possible to get you anything you need. I know that being up in Alaska sometimes kind of leaves you without everything that the lower 48 have sometimes in abundance. Right now, we're kind of in the same boat with primers, but as those come back into stock, I'm sure we both will be able to get our hands on them. And it doesn't sound like they're overcharging you too bad on the primers either, because you're getting them cheaper than we can.
I was very surprised when the salesman or the guy there said, "Oh, $42 a thousand." I said, "How many could I buy?" I said, "One." Okay, well, I bought 1,000, but they had the primers behind the counter, so people couldn't just grab them and go up to the front and pay for 10 bricks or whatever.
Right.
But no, things are coming back, and if you all ever need any type of help, I mean, a lot of people say they want to go to Alaska, but they never go through it. Uh, I'll be glad to help anyone. Any ideas or comments or any how to do it the most cheapest way. A lot of people come up here for a week or 2 weeks and rent a vehicle or whatever. But I'll be glad to help anyone on their travel plans. I've been all over the state. We have a small motor home. We go all over the state on the road system, and
Cool.
coming to Alaska is not like an impossible dream. It's something that's actually, not that expensive if you know how to do it right. And so that's a lot of fun. You see things. It's pretty impressive.
That's actually a pretty good idea, to have, if anybody wants to come over to John's channel, I've got his channel going across the screen. And I also have a link to his channel in my description box. On the if you click the description box on this video's page, it will have his channel, and I would recommend all of y'all get out there and subscribe to him and give him a whirl. He's got a lot of good videos, and it's also kind of neat watching somebody from so far away in the United States from me, because we're on different edges of the world. He's the far left, upper northern left, I guess northwestern state, and I'm in the southeastern state. So it's pretty neat how we're just talking across the entire United States right here with AR, me, and John.
Can you see Russia, John?
I
had to say that.
In some places you can, but I've never been to the island that you can see Russia. But I'll tell you what, I've been in places in Alaska where you wish you could see Russia. You're so isolated.
It just popped in my head about Sarah Palin and what she said. They actually joked about it in comedy. I can see Alaska from my front porch, or Russia.
Yeah.
Actually, well, it didn't really happen, supposedly.
From your viewpoint, it sounds very far away. From here in Alaska, it's not very far away. We actually get, every so often, we do get Russian bombers come over from Russia. They test the airspace in Alaska, and they have to scramble F-22 fighters to intercept the Russian bombers. That happens.
I read about it. Yeah,
a few times here a year or so ago.
Yeah, they're testing us all the time, seeing what we do
and how we do it.
When I said I would help people I'm not like a travel agent. I'm not doing anything for money. Just as a fellow shooter reloader helping another fellow shooter reloader, they need any information coming to Alaska for a trip. I'll be glad to help anyone.
Cool.
Well, we appreciate having you on the channel tonight, John. It was really a pleasure being able to talk with you and listen to your stories. And I hope to have you on again real soon on here, and preferably on one of our late night chats or after hour reloading chats. And basically stay in touch. I'm going to stay in touch with you, and I'm going to be promoting your channel on a night. Every time we go live, we'll be promoting your channel. And just to keep my promises up, Backcountry Arms is another channel that we promote here, and he is an FFL Class 7, and he's an SOT, so he does silencer stuff and he builds guns. And he's located in Wyoming. His name is Chris Sharp, And the last show we had him on there. So you guys go ahead and sign up for his YouTube channel, which is Backcountry, all one word, Arms. And you could check last show for his description link to his channel. And on that, John, would you like to say anything to the crowd before we get out of here?
It was just enjoyable being on this type of format. I never did anything like this before, just talking to everyone. I see the comments on the side. It's just nice to talk to fellow shooters and reloaders nationwide. It's usually I'm just talk to everyone in Alaska or around Anchorage. It's nice to broaden their perspective. It was really enjoyable. I didn't expect to have this much fun.
Yeah, I think I might have you on a maybe a once a month type of thing, depending on your schedule, of course. I don't want to talk before I give you the ability, but every once in a while, I'd like to have you on. That way, we can talk and share reloading stories and tales from Alaska to Florida and back and forth.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it, and I don't mind, talking some more and stuff like that. I don't know what the schedule is. I'm sort of a spur moment type of guy, to be honest with you. But yeah, we could work something out.
Yeah, because you've got hunting season coming up, and I would like to know how you did this season after you get done. So when you get done with now, we have deer season coming up. What do you have coming up in November?
Yeah, well, hunting season's been in full swing for over a month in Alaska.
Oh, okay.
We've already had sheep season. I don't go sheep hunting, but I talked to a friend who got a full curl sheep. My son got a caribou here last month. I've actually went back out caribou hunting. Didn't have any luck. I'll probably go out next week for a couple of days. Moose season is sort of winding down now, but there's late season moose hunts. And I am going to be going Sitka blacktail deer hunting, and there's a chance of a black bear here end of October. So
just jump in, John, anytime you like, when you want. So you're welcome. Come here.
Yeah, brother.
And I love 30-06 cartridge.
Yeah, 30-06 is a good cartridge. And a little hint out there, little trivia. The 30-06 cartridge was basically the cartridge John Moses Browning made the 50 BMG from. If you take a 30-06 cartridge and you set it on the on your workbench and you put a 50 BMG cartridge right next to it, it looks like somebody just gave that 30-06 a bunch of steroids and it grew up.
It's also the round for the gangsters, the bar rifle, BAR.
Yeah, the BAR. The who was that used that?
Dillinger, quite a few people.
Yeah, but the girl and the guy, who were those fellas?
Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, a lot of people used it though. That thing. It was a deadly weapon back then.
Yeah, Clyde had and I tell you what, there's another little story to tell you about. Is a lot of these guys that where custom gunsmiths actually came from was originally from gangsters. I remember reading stories and hearing stories about gangster gunsmiths. And there is actually, if you go to the NRA museum, they have various 1911s, BARs, Remington 30 caliber automatic rifles from the 20s. And they were all produced and made and modified by these classic gunsmiths. Then they were known to work on Al Capone and all the gangsters used to hear about from the 20s, and basically famous gunsmiths that even did stuff for the law enforcement officers that were chasing these guys. This is the kind of thing they played both ends against the middle, and it was kind of a neat story. And if you guys ever get a chance to check out the NRA museum, please do. They have a lot of neat firearms in there, and you have genres that you wouldn't really think they would cover, but it's very, very intellectually kind of intriguing. You're like, wow, look at all these fully automatic 1911s. I'm telling you, these gangsters had some stuff, man. These compensated barrels from 1920 in a fully automatic 1911 with pearl grips on it. I was like, in custom engraving along the sides of the slides and frames, and some of the artwork that these guys were able to pull off, just amazing.
Appreciate you all coming by. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, go ahead and take us out of here, AR.
Appreciate you coming on, John. It's good having you.
Yeah, thanks. Mm-hmm. Thanks, everyone, for listening to me.
Mm-hmm. Vanessa Kitty's here, G23. Let me call out a few people here. Michael Hurtnick, Critter's here, Critter 9. I just call him Critter. Good to see you all. Fuzz Fork. Who else is here? And I'm there. Okay. I already knew that. Let's see. That's probably about it. Curtis Long's here. Good to see you, Curtis. Who else? Johnny 1982. I'm not familiar with it. Good to have you here. Who else? Johnny. Warsaw Patriots here. Who else here? Still scrolling, guys. Bear with me. Guns and Barbecue. Almost missed you. Good to have you here, bro. Let's see. I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah, and there's 15 of you out there, and thanks all of y'all for coming. Guns and Barbecue, always a pleasure, brother, to see you in the side chat, and would like to have you on as well as your schedule allows. I know you're very busy. Johnny, yeah, Johnny 1982, brother, nice to see you coming back on. Everyone in the side chat, thank you very much for keeping us entertained, and everyone have a very nice evening. And then John, we're just going to go down on the right, and it says leave the studio, and then we'll go backstage, and we'll go ahead and call the show over here in just a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, you all have a good one, and God bless and take care.